Hello and welcome to Help Along Studio. In today's video, I'm going to share with you how you can create this Deco Foil Christmas card. It's a card that's very easy to make, but there's a few tips and tricks I'd like to share with you on how you can get really great foil transfer using the Deco Foil Adhesive Pen. So let's get started. So for today's Christmas card design, we're going to be using a few things. We're going to be using this Deco Foil. This particular one's a rainbow shattered glass. I like the ones with a more holographic look on them. That's some of my favorite ones to use on my projects. We're also going to be using a Deco Foil Adhesive Pen and a few of the Wild Whisper Design stamp sets just to add sentiments at the end of this project. The paper that I'll be using today is some of the Wild Whisper Designs Bows and Baubles paper. This one has trees on the back and has the fun light bulbs on the front. And so we're going to be actually using this image for our cards. You want to first start with a piece of pattern paper 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. And the reason I want to cut to that size is so that we can put this on a 5 by 7 card. For this design, I'm purposely choosing a more black and white design just because then the Deco Foil can show up quite nicely on the paper. So to start with, we're going to add the Deco Foil Adhesive Pen to the paper. And one thing I would suggest when you're doing this is make sure that you get the pen moving, and that's putting down quite a bit of adhesive onto your paper. I find that going in circular motions helps get a little bit more down. With this paper, I find that it likes to try to absorb a lot of the adhesive, so I'm probably going to actually go in and put a second layer on top. And so with the Deco Foil Adhesive Pen, it's basically just an adhesive glue in a pen form. So this allows you to get a little bit better shapes as you're working on your cards, but you'll notice it's not a very fine tip, it's a bullet tip. So it works a little bit nicer when you're trying to do projects like this to be able to get just general areas filled in. And we're just going to continue doing this until I have filled in all of the Deco Foil area. So once you've added your layer of Deco Foil pen to your paper, we can move on to the next step. If you find you're not really getting a good first coat of Deco Foil pen, you can always add a second coat. Just make sure you let it dry in between. When it's ready to go, you'll know because it's going to be sticky, a little bit tacky, but it's not going to be wet. You don't want this wet, you just want it tacky. So I'm going to basically show you how you can use a cold embossing technique on this. So in this case, I'm taking a piece of Deco Foil that I already have done some cards with. I'm putting it over the area, and I'm just rubbing with my bone folder. And lifting. And then this way, if you want particular lights to be a certain color, you're basically getting that color by just choosing different areas of the holographic foil. The other thing you can do is rub your finger. And it will also lift. So again, you don't have to necessarily go super crazy with this stuff. It will come and lift off for you. So you can get pretty good results just without any sort of heat when you're adding Deco Foil to your project. I'm just going to do this to the rest of the little lights just to transfer the foil. And there you go. As you can see, you have a pretty good foil transfer. You might notice like small areas in here that are white. Those are areas that, as much as I was trying to put down the Deco Foil adhesive as evenly as possible, there's little areas that I missed. What you could do is go in and just add a little bit more along that edge. And let it dry for a second. And then just add a little bit more foil. And it works. It's not perfect, but it works. And what I've noticed about the Deco Foil Adhesive Pen, it's a great pen. It doesn't have as even of coverage as you would get from the gel. So this is a little bit of trial and error. What I would love is be able to have something about this thickness that I could actually apply with a brush. And I think that way you would get a really even coat, where sometimes I find this felt applicator doesn't completely work for me when it comes down to getting a really even coat. So I went through, and for a few of these ones I fixed up the corners, but for a couple of these ones I actually added a whole new level of adhesive on top and then add more Deco Foil, and I got a much more consistent result. So something to think about when you're creating these projects. It might be just the paper that I'm using for this project might be absorbing a little bit too much of the glue, where it's making it a little bit harder to get that really even finish. But for proof of concept and how to add an adhesive pen to backgrounds like this is the way you can do it really easily. I also wanted to show you how you can use a laminator and get the same effect or a very similar effect. So the best way to do this is take your piece of Deco Foil and decide which kind of colors that you want. In this case, I'm going to go a little bit more on this side. I'm just going to press it down. So turn it around and just cut off the excess. And you can use any laminator for this. If you haven't seen my other Deco Foil video, I've also done this using an iron. There's more than one way you can heat set the Deco Foil. And whenever you're using a laminator, make sure you put it in a piece of parchment paper. Making your parchment paper sandwich, you put your Deco Foil in, and you very carefully run it through the machine. And you always want this to cool for a minute or two before you remove the foil, because it gets pretty warm. And then you just peel back. So what you'll notice about this one versus this one is that one thing I hadn't realized before I tried this is that this is some sort of laser paper, because the fact that it has some sort of laser-based ink, because if you have any sort of laser-based ink, when you're using Deco Foil, if you add heat to it, it will take all of the laser areas and turn them black. So you can see here that I ended up with some pretty good results. For some reason, I think it was just the way the Deco Foil adhesive was placed. There's a few there that aren't taking the color quite as well. So I'm just going to go in and add another layer of Deco Foil adhesive on this, and I'm going to reheat set it. And I'll be honest, I've generally had better results with the Deco Foil pen than I'm having today. For some reason, it seems to be, I'm not sure if it's the humidity or what, or the fact that I've been using my Deco Foil pen a lot, or what, but I've been finding I'm getting a little bit more mixed results than I usually do. And in this case, I'm just going to do the entire light just so that it all kind of has the same color. And so depending on the heat in your laminator, depending on probably the humidity in the air, how old your Deco Foil pen is, and other factors, you may get varied results with this, like I am today. Because when I was testing this last week, I found that I was getting much better results than I seem to be getting today. So with all of these mediums, it's always practice. Expecting that you will go in and the first time you ever use a medium, you're going to get it perfect is not really super realistic. I'm trying to make a decision how I want to go about this. And this is where you can, if you are trying to use up bits of Deco Foil, this is where you can just piece things in. Because I'm trying to get the colors to kind of match a bit. So now I've tried to color match my pieces as well as I can. I'm going to put this back into my sandwich. I'm just going to run it through again. And this video is going into a little bit more detail than I originally planned, because I honestly thought this was going to be just one and done. But I also see this as a learning opportunity. This shows us how we can adjust when things don't necessarily go according to plan, how we can fix things, so that even though you foiled something and it hasn't totally turned out perfectly, you can definitely work with it. I think as an artist, I really try hard not to just show everything as being perfect, because I don't think that is really realistic for a lot of our experiences. So I really do want to show you some of the process of fixing things when things don't go according to plan. So with these ones, the colors weren't perfect match, but I don't mind. I kind of like having actually the dual color. I think that adds a little bit of interest to it. And now in this area, yeah, so I think it was maybe the way the laminator was put through, maybe where the Deco Foil was kind of sitting on the surface. I think I would maybe do this a little bit differently, where maybe I would, on paper that this is maybe this porous, I would maybe add some sort of sealant and then add the glue on top just to have it work a little bit better. So you can see you can get very different results, whether or not you want to just see all of the black as a contrast, or if you want everything to be deco foiled. This is where this paper, being I guess some sort of laser paper, which I didn't know before, definitely helps with that process. There's lots of different ways you can do this card. You can do it just with the black and the white, with the foil. You can have it where the foil is kind of covering everything. And I kind of like the whole black and white feel, but what if you wanted to add some color to this? The other option you can do is start looking at adding watercolors and other mediums to the background. And so because the foil is on there, it's going to act a bit like a resist. So what I'm going to do is just take my watercolors, and I am going to just grab a little bit of watercolor. And the two colors I'm here using right now are this French ultramarine blue and cobalt blue. And I want to try to make these quite light and just to add them as a wash. And you could decide you could go over the whole thing and it'll resist, or you can just go around everything depending on if you want to be a little bit more particular. Because any of the areas that maybe didn't perfectly take the glue will change color as well. And with this not being watercolor paper, it is going to buckle a little bit. And it's not going to take the color as well. I don't have as much working time as I would on watercolor paper. But this is just more a proof of concept of where you could take this if you wanted to add other color. You could also use markers and other things, but I love using watercolor washes. They're very quick, they're very easy to get down, and I really like the final result. I like the softness of the background. And so there you go. If you wanted to add a little bit of blue or add a little bit of a color, just to add a little bit more color to that background. These ones, of course, are beautiful. But if you wanted something a little bit different, that's also another option. So I wanted to show you how you could add a sediment to these cards, because you have these beautiful backgrounds and make a really nice 5x7 card, but I really feel like just adding a little sediment there and you're going to be basically done. And so I'm using some watercolor paper. I was bookbinding last week, so these are just offcuts of my watercolor paper for my books. And I have taken the Well Whisper Designs Ledger and Scripts stamp set. They have these really very tiny letters, and I've put down and bright because my sentiment's going to be merry and bright. And I'm just going to ink those with black ink. Press it down, and it's meant to look that way. It's meant to be kind of like a typewriter that has had a few typos, because when you're using a manual typewriter, you really do get situations like that when you are typing, especially if you're not typing evenly. And so now I'm going to go in and use some Distress Oxide Fossilized Amber, and I'm also using the brush grip stamp set from Well Whisper Designs, and I'm going to add in the Merry. And with the Merry, what you want to do is you want to do each letter individually, because you want to kind of go around what you've already stamped. So this thinks it gives it a little bit more of a text block kind of look that you would get from actually creating something in the Canva or something. And I really like that look. You just have to do them backwards. And there you go. You have your Merry and Bright, and it's done really fast and really easy. And now what I'm going to do is cut this out, put on some black cardstock, and then I will show you basically how you can assemble the rest of your card. I'm going to choose the black and white card, and you want to take a look at your card, and I think because of this big white space here, I'm just going to put it right there. And then that ties in with the yellow. You could really pull any color out from your background for your sediment, but I really like the idea of using a lot of black and white for this one. I'm just going to throw it on there like so. And then the final step is just to add this to a card back. This is a step I don't usually show in a lot of my videos, but today I will. Part of it's the framing of this card is what's going to make it look really, really nice. And that's what I do with most of my cards. Most of my cards I do like this. I do them as just a piece of paper, and then I add it to a card back. I find that for me is a better way of doing it, because then I don't have to worry about the card back getting ink on the back page or anything else that might happen as I'm creating. But it is something to keep in mind when you're doing this. You do want to make sure that you cut your piece a bit smaller, just so that you're able to have it on the card. Another example of this is the one I had done with a gel medium, which you can see was a little bit more globby and a little bit more outside the lens because I was having a hard time controlling the gel medium. I also have this one here that was done with the blue, and done through the heat, so you can see where all of the black areas have been made a little bit more subtle. So as you can see that even just one idea, you can take it a lot of different ways. So I hope you learned a new way you can use Deco Foil in your projects from this tutorial. If you've enjoyed this video, if you could like it, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you don't miss out on any future videos. And if you would be interested in seeing the photo and written instructions for this project, you can find them on my website, hopalongstudio.com. And there I always have lots of ideas on how to build a creative habit in your own life. So I hope you give this project a try this week, that you take some time for some creative self-care, and I will see you next time.